Hi, my name is Angelo Lopez. I am a Filipino American editorial cartoonist in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I have the deep honor to be speaking to two wonderful activist friends, Brandon Lee and Jessica Antonio. Today, we'll be talking about their mutual friend, Lyle Prijoles. Is that how you pronounce his last name, Prijoles? He was a Filipino American activist who was recently, along with 19 other people, killed during a Philippine military action and stuff. So today we'll be talking about Lyle's life as well as the work that he was doing on the Negros region in the Philippines. So I want to thank both of you, but I told this to you both in private, but in public too. I wanted to say my condolences for the loss of your friend and stuff. So,
Thank
but
you.
yeah, thank you and stuff. So I guess the first thing, one of the reasons I'm doing this talk is I don't know Lyle and stuff. So I want to know, how did you both meet Lyle, and what was he like?
You want to
Jessica.
start? Yeah. I was like, you want to start with your love story? Um, what's funny is I actually met Lyle first through his girlfriend at the time because I'm based in San Jose and
Yeah.
have always been based in San Jose. Um, and I was pledging for Kappa Psi Epsilon, and it's a Pinai Pinai sorority in all over California. But
Oh,
yeah, and so it was actually like Club Lyle that I met first. Like we would go dancing, and he would come, and it wasn't until I got like a an email from like International Answer Coalition that promoted the League of Filipino Students or LFS's Stop the Killings rally in San Francisco that I met the activist style, and I just decided to join that. I didn't know anything about um, like the Philippines issues to that point, to that extent, and or any of the organizations, and just decided to drive up, join them, walk in the streets. They're chanting "Stop the Killings" and listing out names of different people that were killed under Gloria Macapagal Arroyo's regime
yeah.
and marching. And that's how I first met Lyle, activist Lyle.
Oh, okay.
And it was
Uh,
like through that, like that they talked about the Balaksambayan and or the BSB exposure program trips and basically sold me
Oh,
to join the organization and go.
okay.
nice.
Yeah.
For myself, I met Lyle in our ethnic studies classes,
Oh,
particularly Asian American Studies class on um, Filipino psychology. And
Begonia.
yeah, it was our class where our motto we chose for the class was Lakas Pamilya, which means
Mm.
strong family. Um, and Lyle was in a different group than mine, but we got close as a class. And eventually, he invited the whole class to what Jessica just mentioned, the Sambayanan Return to the Homeland Exposure Program fundraiser. So
Mm.
there at the fundraiser, we got to hear like why LFS wanted to go to the Philippines, or for majority of them, or all of them at the time,
yeah.
back home.
Mm.
Oh,
And in 2007, so that was 2004. I I marched with Lyle for 3 full years, doing EDs with him, and then we both went on our first exposure together in 2007. Um, yeah, and that's our story.
yeah. Was he? I don't know. I read your post on it. Was he kind of nerdy? I mean,
Kind of.
yeah. I mean, did he have a good sense of humor or,
Yeah, we're definitely all three of us connected.
yeah.
Definitely on the nerd level, like super nerdy, like Star Wars, all sorts of fantasy, sci-fi things. Um, I don't know if you knew this, but he would actually submit video recordings of himself doing reviews to what was
Oh,
it called? Was it Rotten Tomato?
Yes.
oh.
Yeah, and he would
I mean,
get
he was like
like
a movie reviewer.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And he would, and if you're selected, then you actually do get like money, like
Oh,
some cash flow, because then they feature your video and review. And so
oh,
like to that level. And we took Lyle and I took Brandon on his first Comic Con International San Diego experience. And so I think you saw one of the photos of
yeah,
us
yeah, yeah.
there, and just we like to live out our nerdy fantasy lives together.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. In addition to that, we used to play video games in his room.
Yeah.
You look at his room from the ceiling to the floor, full of toys, unboxed.
Unboxed toys, yes.
Oh, so he
It's
was a collector.
he was a
Collector.
collector, and
Oh,
he
okay.
had a
Mhm.
lot of comic books.
Yeah.
He collected history books.
Oh,
Um,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
nerd in that way
Aside
too.
from that, actually, Jessica and Lyle were in a band together. They used to play rock band a lot. Um, if
Yeah.
if the audience doesn't know rock band, it's like a simulator of the different instruments you play. There's the drummer, the bass guitar,
oh, yeah, yeah.
the regular guitar, and
And
then
the
the singer. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was, yeah, when you think about like activists and organizers, you think about like, oh, protests, marches, rallies, events, and things like that. But when the time that we were in LFS together, we also like at the core of it was building that like real tight bond of friendship
Yeah.
and hanging out. Like I never played. I was not much of a gamer in terms of like
Yeah.
but I would hang with them in Lyle's room and just like hang out just to hang. And having like rock band parties and just we would we saw those things as like we are really building our relationships with each other.
Yeah.
Um and we would throw I don't know if I should talk about these, but we would throw house parties at the Sugar Shack. That's what Lyle's house was called. It's called the Sugar Shack. And that's like a history that Brennan maybe can talk about. But we would do fundraisers, and that would go towards like being able to fully fund people's trips to the Philippines to the Balik Sambayanan. So we would really want to send people and not have to like you don't have to have that money. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That would be a barrier to many people to travel to the Philippines because it costs money to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so we would do lots of different events and fundraisers, and some of them would be like house parties. Some of them would be like, oh, we're gonna do a hip hop event. We're gonna do like a punk rock show, like fundraiser. We're gonna do like exercising fundraisers, whatever it is, to like really support people and being able to go.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think part of when we think of activists and stuff, there's a stereotype that everybody, they're all serious, they're all focused on, but he was a multifaceted human being, right?
yeah.
And so there were many facets to to Lyle, I guess. Was he an intellectual kind of? Because I mean, he had all those history books, right? And stuff. Was he
Mhm.
sort of an intellect or as well as kind of sci-fi buff, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's an intellectual in a way that he knows what he's talking about. But what makes him unique is that he makes that information accessible to the
Mhm.
Yeah,
common person.
yeah,
He doesn't talk above you, he talks to you.
yeah,
And that's amazing because there are too many activists today that
Mm.
they just talk above like the common person, like they
Mm.
are above, and that's
Mm.
not the kind of activists that that can unite people. And Lyle was
Mhm.
a uniter.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah. And because he would really like when he would talk about things, whether it be like the like hosting or facilitating educational discussion groups, it would be like, here's information, but also like, what do you think? What do you know? Like posing the questions back,
yeah,
um, to so that really like it's not a banking system. Like when we think about like education and information and gaining knowledge, it's like, how do I connect this information to like you, like your knowledge and your experience, you know? And so that's like, that was really like how he had that skill.
yeah. I'm wondering, with his activism, was it partially the classes and then partially the books that he was reading that led him to that, or was there always a social justice element within him that just came out, I guess?
I mean, if you even look back to his high school days where he was part of JROTC,
Yeah.
he was already critical of the war on Iraq, the US war on Iraq.
Okay.
He spoke out, and that's way before he joined the League of Filipino Students. So before, I mean, he was already reading books at that time, but that was beyond the classroom. He read books for fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and he took the materials that he learned, and he knew he had a sense of what is right and what is wrong, and he took that to the street. He made sure to engage. When we were in LFS, there was the Justice for Veterano campaign, where Filipino vets were considered like second class citizens.
Yeah.
They were not given their rights and
Right.
to um, the privileges of fighting in World War II.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was very much involved in like, like the Philippine community or even like creative aspects of like Philippine like community. And his sister played a pretty major role in like getting into like the like poetry scenes and bringing him along to different
Yeah.
events. And so he did have that access through his like and development, and into his own knowledge and experience. And I mean, I don't know if like at San Francisco State University when I first joined, there were like 5, 6 different Filipino organizations, so you could join any of these Filipino organizations, and to choose like LFS, the League of Filipino Students, was to really like understand like, oh, this is like politically and like what it looks like to be politically engaged and involved in the Filipino community,
Yeah.
as well as like the Philippines homeland and the issues there. And so that, like you could have chose any of these like other organizations and to like boom, like this is the one that fit what he wanted to participate in.
Yeah. I was going to ask about Lyle's activism, but I think both of you already mentioned it and stuff. And how did it, I guess you also mentioned how he inspired you in your own activism.
Uh,
It seemed like all three of you were learning together. Does that make sense and stuff? Is that that your experience in activism was sort of you know, as you became friends, part of that friendship was learning activism.
Yeah.
Is that right or is that wrong? Or
I think
Yeah.
you hit it right on the nail. And I mean, for at least Lyle and I, when we went to the Philippines, both of us for the first time, we really came out of that redoubling our efforts to try to get the message out.
yeah,
What is happening in the Philippines, why people in the US need to know about those issues, what's happening to the farmers, the workers, the indigenous people, women, all aspects of class society there. But yeah, when I end up moving to the Philippines,
yeah,
and there was a bit of Lyle didn't want me to move there, but he was inspired that I did move.
oh,
And when he went to um, the Philippines for the last time to Negros,
yeah,
he was proud to tell me that he was going there to the Philippines. And I didn't get to tell him like how proud all of us is of him
yeah,
going there. Constantly back and forth, leading exposurists, other people who are going for the first time. He
Yeah.
led them. He helped break break it to them, like what's going on, what people are saying, and uh, how do you conduct yourself in a community.
Mhm.
What are your takeaways, and um, if there are things that they need to work on, he helps facilitate that. So,
Mhm.
um, I, with every despite everything that happened, he has helped grow this mass movement even wider. Um,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, I was going to ask this later, but I might as well ask it now since you're going there. Why was he there? I mean, and what were the conditions? What are the what actually was his work in Negros and stuff? What was the specific issue that he was dealing with?
Well, Lyle's there because this is like the first time since the pandemic that we have been sending people there to the Philippines, trying to reconnect to their homeland, learn why Filipinos are leaving their own country,
Yeah,
why, despite all the resources, how rich the Philippines is, why do Filipinos leave? So, in particular, with Negros, that is considered the massacre capital of the Philippines.
um,
There, it's where why the exploitation is happening. Um, when the farmers collectivize and fight for their basic right to till the land beyond just the cash crop that is known as sugar for their for the landlords who are in the coffers of Marcos Jr. Um, Lyle wanted to be in solidarity with them. He wanted to understand why why are they being killed? Why are they organizing? Why is there actually resistance in all forms? So when I
yeah,
say all forms, I mean um, from the activism, and why is there armed rebellion happening in the Philippines?
yeah,
So he went there to try to understand from the people themselves, like what is going on. So he probably also ate what they ate, which is usually just one meal a day because they cannot afford to eat.
Yeah.
which is what he would have told us
Yeah. So
if he
they're
came back.
tilling the lands, but not able to eat from that land in a way
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
they're tilling it for the landlords, and
Mm-hmm.
these landlords are the ones to pay them with, like, it's like $1 a day kind of slave labor that's still
Mm-hmm.
happening
Yeah.
today. And there's the famous famine photos during martial law where you see children with nothing on their skin. It's just like skeleton. And
Yeah.
these famines have killed so many of the peasants and their family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the political repression, like where where people are organizing on multiple fronts and like collectively like like the bunkalans and like putting together their land plots, the small things, and fighting and protect that, even more intense the political repression will be in those areas. And so when Brandon talks about it being like the a target of the Philippine military and goons, because like the landlords, right, who are basically also the politicians,
Yeah.
are the ones that are sending the armed forces and their goons um, to repress the people violently. And that was the case that Lyle did not come home this time, was because at the hands of the armed forces of the Philippines,
Yeah.
alongside 19 others, including young children. Um, and so when the Philippine government and all of the agencies that are trying to paint Lyle and other civilians as in a negative light, this is exactly like what they're trying to justify the killing of innocent people, and there is no justification for that.
Yeah.
um you know that's a crime, that's a war
Yeah.
crime, and you can't do that and say like, oh well, they were there because of this, and there's no proof of that. There's no, like the real proof is that they were killed violently and unjustly. And so that's why it becomes a campaign um, that people have to take up and fight for the justice for the Negros 19, um, in even in the larger context of the whole of the Filipino people.
I know there's a campaign to try to do an independent investigation so you don't rely on the military um, explanation of what happened. I don't know where that's going right now and stuff, but I'm glad that the campaign is to try to pressure that independent investigation and stuff. Jessicka, I know you have a poem about Lyle, so I wanted to ask, is part of his involvement in Negros, it was you mentioned how whenever he does a discussion, he always tries to involve people, and he always seems to care about the plight of people who are voiceless. Is that part of his empathy and stuff? Is Lyle a very empathetic person and stuff? And I guess combine that with the question. I want to give you time, Jessicka, to recite your poem, so that before I have quite a few. I think I have too many questions. I'm going to try to bundle it down and stuff. But as part of it for both of you, have you found Lyle to be is part of his social justice drive, just his empathy for people?
Yes, indeed. I mean, he cared a lot from his heart, right? And that's why, like, when I think about Lyle, it's like Lyle as like the person who really like wanted to connect deeply with people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a surface level of friendship. It wasn't Like I am just here to organize you, you know. It is, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, and it was really like those foundational friendship things that organized me. I really I don't have to read this one, but
Oh, okay.
that's really what brought me in. I was already a politically engaged person before coming to LFS. Um, but it was like Lyle helped organize me because it was his friendship, opening his house, sharing rides with me, connecting with me on that real deep personal like way, just hanging out, talking, eating food, playing games, doing things that we already love to do, and being part of these organizations because we know um that if we want to change the world, like you have to organize. And part of that, like all of those things, like the friendships and the things that we did, you talked a little bit about this before the call, but mental health is so important. And
Yeah.
that and friendships, um, and these deep bonds that Brandon and I and like a good like group of of old school LFSers have with each other is how I've been able to move through grief.
Yeah.
Um, there's no other way. Like this, there's um, this kind of violent death of a friend. Never have I experienced that in my entire life. It
Yeah.
was close with Brandon. I was like, oh my God, when we heard about Brandon and his conditions. I was with Lyle in a like in a space, and we would be like, I need to know what's happening. I need to know like what is the condition that of Brandon's life, and having, like getting the information about like having to be resuscitated so many times to keep him alive, and then the campaign to bring Brandon back to the United States and make sure that he can get the care that he needs.
Yeah.
Um, I was with Lyle in all of those moments, and now I'm with like Brandon and um dealing with this trauma. It's it's necessary to like be with each other and to grieve and to not only just remember like all of the wonderful memories that will live on, that will like his life will and legacy will live on through our hearts and through our minds and how we are to this day. And it is also to continue, right, the the fight for for justice for Lyle and the Negros 19. And that level of humanity is what Lyle would carry with him everywhere. Um, and building those strong relationships with people is how he really organized from the ground up. Um, yeah, and so I bet I can talk more about like how that even connects to like what he's been participating in on the front lines and the pickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brandon, we have for this first meeting, we have around 9 minutes. If you put your mouse in the right corner, you'll see how much time is left for this first one.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, Brandon, go ahead and stuff like you know, how have you handled, it's a traumatic thing that happened and stuff. Has community helped you?
Um, I'd like to first answer the question that Jessica just had.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah, Lyle's humanity, his compassion, empathy, I would say is rooted uh, through his love from the family that taught him, uh, from his mother and father, how he grew up under their care,
Yeah,
um, all the way to his love uh, in the church. He would say himself that Jesus helped people, and that's what we would be doing too, or that's what we should all do.
Yeah.
Um, and then for myself, like um, the attack on my life, uh, I have been updating friends like since 2014. What was happening to me is not unusual to what is happening to so many land defenders, human rights defenders, environmentalists, um, trade unionists in the Philippines. And they're all just fighting for their right to life, to exist. And it's usually in the interest of the US to suppress activists. Um, so that is why the campaign here in the US is very crucial to get our politicians to cut the military aid to the armed forces of the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
Because our tax dollars is funding the bullets that are in my body now,
Mm.
that killed our friend Lyle, that killed Kai Sorum, who's a Seattle native, and
Oh,
that has killed many
Yeah.
activists and civilians in the Philippines. And
yeah,
not just that, but revolutionaries who are really fighting for a free Philippines, independent Philippines.
yeah,
It's their love for the country and the reason why they are fighting back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you and stuff. I appreciate, I have to admit, for a long time I was an ignorant American and stuff. Is the Philippine Human Rights Act still, or is that just now that Trump's in office, has that been forgotten? Is that still?
it has not been forgotten, but there's a lot of politicians who don't want to be the first to
Mm-hmm.
champion it, like
No.
former Congresswoman Susan Wild, has a terrific track record for human rights in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Um, we're still engaged with many politicians, and actually, Representative Jayapal of Washington State released a sign on letter calling for the independent investigation, that one you were just mentioning earlier. And California Senator Adam Schiff is among three senators that signed on to the letter,
Oh,
as well as numerous Congress people who have thus yet signed on. Um, so it's a big victory for the people and the Justice for Negros 19, but it doesn't stop with a sign on letter. We still need a champion for the Philippine Human Rights Act. We need to cut U.S. military aid to the Philippines. And yes, under the Trump administration, all of that is hard because, as you can see now in Congress, not much legislation is getting passed.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Unless it's to support war.
Right.
yeah,
Unless it's like the $1 trillion defense package to
yeah.
support war on other countries and peoples around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I just talked to two Cuban cartoonists because
Mm.
Trump is threatening to invade Cuba, and they're not thrilled at his threats and stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. How can people get involved in the issues that Lyle cared about? And I guess I'll combine it with my last question. What did Lyle's life mean to both of you? How did it inspire you both?
I guess to answer your first question, how can people get involved? One, you can join the Defend Negros Island Coalition. You can find them on their IG. Just look under Defend Negros and Northern California. It should pop right up. Um, there's all sorts of things you can do if you have skills and talents you want to learn, to just being able to volunteer your time. Um, there's lots of opportunities to help out in the campaign to garner awareness about what's happening in the Philippines, what happened to our dear friend Lyle, and for those who are in the Pacific Northwest, to our dear friend Kai, um, as well as the activists, civilians, and revolutionaries killed in Negros. Um, yeah, and then what was, oh, your second question? Uh, you can see the shirt that Jessica's wearing now. It says "Live like Lyle."
Oh
Uh,
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
yeah, I mean, Lyle in no way was perfect. He's flawed like anyone here, but the thing about Lyle is he kept constantly improving himself, his lifestyle, his work, to this point, like where a lot of the members that he had helped orient
Organize.
into the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, U.S. chapter. Um, they see him as a legend, because of all the good work he has done over time, and a lot of his colleagues who are in the National Democratic Movement also see him in this light. But he was not always like that. He worked on it, and that's part of living like Lyle, is like constantly improving. But one of his belief is to serve the people, and that's what we are saying when we say live like Lyle. To
Yeah,
go serve the people, whether that's like if you're Filipino, to serve your community here in the U.S., to help the migrant workers here,
yeah.
or back home in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. Brandon pretty much like summed that up. And really, when I think about like the live like Lyle and serve the people and reflecting on like everything we talked about in this conversation, um, those the way that Lyle organized, um, the way that he lived, and with his heart, with humanity at the center, with love at the center of it all. Um, really, that's what it means to me. It's like, how did Lyle really do this work? And how did he make those deep connections with people towards organizing with them, alongside them, and for the Filipino people, both here in the US and in the Philippines? And I think that like that deep connection, that interconnectedness between, activism and friendship, um, is at the heart of that is that love for humanity. And
Mhm.
that's what that means to me.
Okay. Well, thank all, both of you for that. It just occurred to me, since he was a Star Wars fan, I
Yeah.
know that the heart of Star Wars is actually a very anti-imperialist theme and stuff. And I just
Mhm.
finished watching Andor last summer, and Andor is very,
Favorite.
very much an anti-imperialist, anti-authoritarian show. It took away the
Yes.
Ewoks, and it's just it loses. it leaves the
Well, the
anti.
Ewoks were guerrilla warfare, but
But they were, yeah. But thank you both and stuff. So yeah, I appreciate it, and I wish to, and I guess also support the strike of the workers in C&H Sugar, right, and stuff. So again, C&H Sugar to help solidarity with their strike too and stuff. So
Yeah,
you know,
because the sugar is from Negros,
Negros.
and what the workers on the factory line actually told us, um, or those in the warehouse, they said we are the end of the line where the exploitation is happening, but in the beginning of the line is where it's harvested. That's where you know the blood gets soaked. That's where Philippine um, workers and peasants are
yeah,
being exploited.
yeah, yeah. I just did a cartoon on that, so okay. Thank you both and stuff. So okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Angelo.
you.